In 2020, we brought you the heartwarming and sometimes tumultuous stories from the people living in a city within a city. We discovered the life and times of Black Americans living in the heart of historic Biloxi. And we met some of those people whose courage and belief in themselves lifted their spirit and carried them past the unjust behavior and the discrimination endured for so many decades. In part 2 of City Within a City, we find out how important education was to their future. 2 schools, one public, the other private, both segregated. Both provided the gateway to that future. Nichols Public School and our Mother of Sorrows Catholic School provided the opportunity for the young Black children to receive a quality education good as any other school in Biloxi. Each year, alumni from both schools gather for food and fellowship. At the 50th anniversary reunion, I caught up with some of the graduates who experienced firsthand what it was like to attend Nichols and our Mother of Sorrows schools, and to find out what happened when Biloxi schools were segregated in 1964. Authors and historians Gordon Jackson and Ray Belandi talked to some of these extraordinary people about their education.
You graduated, you went all the way through Nichols and graduated what year?
1970.
1970, okay. Now, it was during that time when there was that gradual integration from Nichols to Biloxi.
Right.
Did that affect you in any way?
Yes.
And tell me how did you decide to stay at Nichols?
My mother was a school teacher.
Okay.
She taught at Perkins.
Okay.
And when all the integration was going on, I did want to go to Biloxi High because at that time we had a choice. You could go to Biloxi High, you could stay at Nichols. And a lot of my friends were going to Biloxi High. My classmates was going to Biloxi High.
Okay.
And I wanted to go to Biloxi High. My mom wouldn't let me.
He wouldn't let you.
She wouldn't let me. So I stayed at Nichols, and my class was the last class to come out of Nichols before they converted it to a junior high.
Junior high, the last high school class. Wow, that's historic. We interviewed somebody earlier who said their mother told them, "No, you're going to Biloxi." Yeah. So yours is just the opposite. They said, "No, you're going to stay at
Go
stay
figure,
at Nichols."
right? Go figure.
But did you regret that? Do you still remember good times at Nichols?
Oh, I remember. We had really good times. I found we were at a disadvantage in a lot of things,
Sure.
but the pride that we had
Still
going
had
to
the pride.
Nichols, because in 1969 and 70, Nichols was the only African-American school left on the coast.
On the coast, on the entire coast.
The entire coast.
Wow.
All the other cities had already converted their schools, and I don't know why it took City of Biloxi so long.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the cry of the people in the
Right.
community,
Right.
or I don't know what politics took place.
Yeah, that's
but
interesting.
it was interesting. In the ending of 1968. Our principal, C.J. Duckworth,
Yes.
he left the school and took a job with the State Teachers Association.
Okay.
And so he left Biloxi, and then they had to bring in a new principal. And our principal was Mr. Stewart.
Stewart, right?
He was a Caucasian man.
Okay.
And those 2 years he was our principal, and he continued to be the principal after the school turned into a junior high school.
To junior high. Okay. What was the feeling from the students about that, having a white principal at a predominantly black school?
There was a lot of mixed emotions.
Yeah. Yes.
Because not only did he been the principal, they brought in other Caucasian staff at our school, which we had not had before. And I understand it was a transition period.
Transition, right?
So there was some mixed emotions, and we had some issues that went on.
I could imagine. Yeah.
But he was a really nice man. I'm not trying to say he was prejudiced or anything.
Okay.
I thought he viewed us as quality people. So, but of course, the enrollment went way down because a lot of the students went to
Biloxi.
Biloxi High, Mary Michelle, which was the junior high over there. They were, you know, in which that's what we were fighting for.
Yeah, right. You were fighting? Yeah, you
Yeah,
were fighting.
that's
to be
what we were
considered-
fighting
Considered equal, they say. Yeah.
So
yeah.
there was a big change. That year Mr. Duckworth left, we lost a lot of quality teachers.
Teachers too. Yeah.
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 So
What did you do in high school? What activities were you involved in?
I was involved with the choir.
Okay.
I was involved with the band. I was editor-in-chief of our school newspaper.
Good.
I was a beauty pageant contestant.
All right.
Cameras,
All that. Yeah.
it was real. Me and the girls from Biloxi High, they were very nice and very friendly. We really enjoyed them, and they enjoyed us. You know,
That's good.
I placed second runner-up.
Good for you.
One of the girls placed as most talented. One of the girls was had the highest academic score.
Okay. Outstanding.
Yeah, so we made history that day.
Yeah, you made some inroads.
We made
Sure
history,
did.
and a few years after that, an African American girl won the title.
She won
Took the title.
Yeah, so you
So-
set the precedence for
Right.
something kind of like history making.
Right, we did. That was that was
That was
history.
history making.
That was history.
Right, and so, yeah, so that meant I'll end up being one of the first male teachers, because some of the people that was in that graduate program we was from, like Gainesville, either other parts of Florida, and then Georgia, but I was one of the first male kindergarten through third grade teachers in the state of Florida. So, my wife and I, she was working with Internal Revenue Service,
In Orlando.
in Orlando, and then of course her mother and father was ill in Mars Spring, and then my mother was getting ill in Biloxi.
Yeah.
So we decided to move back home. So what I did is I drove back to the Biloxi School District, and Superintendent R.D. Brown was the superintendent.
I knew.
Okay, and so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And Dr. Bill Lee was assistant superintendent. And I went in and told him I had a master's in early child education and undergrad at J State,
Sure.
and that I wanted to come in to teach a kindergarten or first or second grade position in the Biloxi district. He said, "Oh no, men don't teach that. That ain't nothing we ever heard of. You need to go back where you came from."
Seriously.
And I turned around and went on. I turned around and went on back. So I was still teaching, and so it got so that we say, well, we're gonna go ahead and move back anyway. So I came on back, and when I came back this time, I went to the school district. Dr. Olin Ray was the superintendent, and Dr. Larry Drawdy had come in as his assistant superintendent.
Sure.
So when I went in and I spoke with Dr. Ray referred me to Dr. Drawdy because he was over personnel. And Dr. Drawdy sent me out to Beauvoir. Mr. Duncan was the principal.
Who was?
Mr. Duncan.
Okay.
They say he was strict. But I went and interviewed Mr. Duncan. And then also I went and interviewed with Mr. over at Jeff Davis. I ran into he and his wife the other day. I can't even think his name right now. But I interviewed with him, and then they sent me down to the central office to interview with Mr. Bob Cherry. I don't know if you know him or not, but he was over like the Tower One program and all that. And so after I came back, then they actually hired me at Beauvoir. And so they put me in a first grade position. So I ended up, when they put me in that first grade position, they actually, my first job was gonna be over with at Lopez, Mr. Edwin Miles, who's at the visitor center, was principal.
Come on.
Yeah, we're going Flo. And what happened
I
is,
know Ed well.
I know you know Ed. You asking about me? He'll tell you. And that's when we first started getting the Vietnamese students into
Like the late
at Going
70s
Flow.
or late
Yeah, that
70s.
was in '77
At Going Flow.
at Going
You
Flow.
weren't at Going Flow, were you?
Yeah, that's where I was assigned.
Well, my sister was there.
And Edwin Miles, what's your sister's name?
Betty Belandi.
Yeah, I knew her. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure did.
She taught
She
second
know me.
grade. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
She taught second grade.
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
she right down from me then, because I was on the same hall with
Oh,
them.
there. Well,
Yeah, we was there together.
Well, she got
And,
tired of that
Okay,
and went and got an art degree,
okay,
and she became the art teacher in
Teacher.
Biloxi School. She would go
okay.
from different schools.
Schools.
Yeah.
Okay. But then what happened is when I took that job
Mm-hmm.
as a first grade teacher in the Biloxi district, which they don't have, and you need to make sure they get it in the history.
Can I get one of those?
Oh, I'm talking about in the Biloxi city.
No, I meant that book.
Well, I have to talk to Vernon on that. He's in charge of that. We should be able to get
Can I
you.
buy
You should be able to get
Can
one.
I buy one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can do that. But I'm not in charge of the books.
Oh,
but,
yeah, sure.
But normally we try to get one to give to the Biloxi district and to the
Oh, you only have a few.
Gene line. No, well he
Well,
no, we can get them. He can get them because we got them printed right here in Biloxi.
Okay.
That's no problem with it. I'm sure he'd be glad to get a book for you.
Now, is this this reunion?
Yeah, this is the one for this year.
Oh, wow, okay.
But you got all the pictures in here, like all them pictures I was telling you about me, when we the basketball team and all that, in the band and all. They got OMS, also history,
Sure,
and the history of Biloxi. You need to have one of these, really.
I do. Well,
But anyway, see that's. But I mean, I ended up being the first male kindergarten through third grade teacher in the state of Mississippi, and also in the Biloxi School District. So I did first grade. I did first grade for 5 years in Florida, and then I did first grade here in the Biloxi District for 5 years.
at Garden Club. Well, you had both.
Well, I was at Garnflow under Edwin Miles, and then Ed left and went into insurance, and then Susan Hunt came in.
Oh, Lord.
So when Susan Hunt came in, at that juncture, then I felt that I needed to make a change. So personally, I just felt that way. And but she came in, I was there with her, and then I left there and went up under Doug McQueen temporarily at Boudoir. And then after Doug McQueen left, then Tisdale came in.
Okay.
And then after Tisdale left, then Broussard came in. So I coordinated the mentorship program at Boudoir Elementary School. And then also I was the originator of the Mardi Gras parade. That's how I got connected with Tacony and his wife. Because what I did was when I put that parade together,
No, we don't have a black parade?
that's for Boudoir Elementary School.
Oh,
And
I'm
that's
sorry.
that's the same parade that they're doing at Jeff Davis
No
Elementary
kidding.
School now.
I didn't, okay.
But what happened, look, that thing had got so big, I got up to over 30-something units. He'll tell you.
Well, what's the parade route? It's just around
Oh,
the
it was
school?
right there in front of the school.
Okay.
You know, we had that other parking lot over there by the stadium. And that's where we'll line up everybody over there. And then they'll come out there and they'll come into the little loop and come around
Oh,
this
yeah,
way
yeah,
and go back
sure.
out like
Okay.
that.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
But yeah, so and then
They're still doing it.
Yeah, and argue. And what I did was I had laid it all out. So when I left everything, the contacts and everything, I left that with I got with the principal, Miss Susan Brand at the time. She was the last principal, and then laid it out and gave it to her. And then I also gave it to Melanie Nelson, who was at Jeff Davis later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they still follow that same program. But I'm gonna have to go get
Yeah,
dressed.
I
It
agree.
look like I'm gonna be late for this event.
Well, I'm from the Back Bay.
Okay.
And for every one of my father and mother's children, there were cousins. And we all went to Perkins and then to Nichols High School. And we would walk to school every day from the Back Bay to Nichols, going around the bay and through a little swampy area by the old swimming pool until we got to Nichols. My classmates have been lifelong friends. Some of them grew up with me on Fair Street. Others would join us on our walk as we passed the Alumni Street, the other side of Fair Street, Raynard Street, and we would all walk to Nichols High School.
And so, what do you remember about, let's say, your senior year?
Senior year, I was editor of the yearbook. I played in the marching band, sang in the chorus, was a member of the French club and the science club.
You did a lot
And I
of
was
things.
salutatorian of the class of 1966.
And you became salutatorian.
Yes.
Special.
That was the year of integration, and our top student left to go to Biloxi High because it integrated that year.
Right.
And so number 2 moved up to number 1, and number 3 moved up to number 2.
So was Nichols still segregated at
It
the
was
time?
still segregated. Mississippi had a plan where the 12th grade and the 1st grade, then the 11th grade and the 2nd grade. That was the process at that time.
Gotcha.
And I
Gotcha.
decided to stay at Nichols.
That's at Nichols. Okay. How did you feel about the plan for the school to eventually integrate? I mean, you finished at Nichols your senior year, but then right after that, the schools did start become integrated. What were the feelings of everybody at that time?
Varied feelings. Some were apprehensive about it. I was apprehensive talking to members of my family who were educators, and the decision was that it would be better for me to get into a school if I were a sort of big fish in a small pond as opposed to going to Biloxi High and being a minnow in an ocean.
That's good comparison.
So they felt that my chances for academic achievement would be better if I stayed at Nichols. And I'm glad I did, because we were, and we still are, a very close-knit class.
No regrets.
Even the students who went on to go to Biloxi High celebrate with the class of 66. They are members of our class.
Outstanding.
Now, I did not graduate from Nichols High,
Okay.
okay? But I went to Nichols High up until the 12th grade,
12th grade.
and that was in
Oh, that's
1965.
You-
I said up until the 12th grade. I went through 11th grade.
Through 11th
at
grade
Nichols
at
High.
Nichols.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 65, they desegregated the schools,
Exactly.
and they only desegregated the 12th grade. And that's the grade I was
Yeah,
in,
okay.
12th
Going
grade.
into.
And so I changed schools and went to Biloxi High.
And you did?
So I really did not graduate from Nichols High,
Okay.
but that's who I had grown up with, and so I always come back to these reunions. And so I'm still a member of the class of 1966.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just at Biloxi High.
Good Biloxi High. But I'm pretty sure you still feel part of this class and everything.
Yeah,
Everybody's
yeah,
close, right?
yeah.
Talk about a little bit more as to how that happened. How you ended up graduating out of Biloxi High in the 12th grade.
Well, as I said, the schools were desegregated in 1965, the 12th grade. They didn't desegregate the lower grades, at that time. And, my mother was very civic-minded, and she impressed upon me that someone had to go. Because before, the school board had said that the only reason that blacks were not going to Biloxi High is because they had never applied. We knew that was not the situation, So when they said if someone applied, they can go, well, that's what we did. There were 7 of us that applied to go. And 6 of us remained throughout the year and graduated in 66. One of the persons, he didn't stay.
Okay. You didn't stay. So there was 7 African Americans, blacks in the 66 class of Biloxi High.
There was there were 6 of us in the class.
Six of the-
7
you
went,
didn't stay.
1 did not
One did
stay.
not stay.
And so
that
6
was
of us
six.
graduated.
6 of you graduated.
Yeah.
Okay. And whose decision was it to go? It was a decision from your parents that you would go, or how did that work?
Well, the NAACP wanted someone to go, and my mother, she really made the decision that I would be one of the ones to go. Yeah.
Okay.
I always say that back in those days that your parents didn't negotiate with you. They told you what was going down, like that. So she said, so there it was. I think had I really had my way, I probably would not have gone.
Oh, you were
I
feeling about
probably,
that.
but Mom said, and so I went and I did my best.
All right.
Uh-huh.
So did you trust in your mom that she was making the right decision for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, uh-huh. Yeah,
It turns out it sounds like
and I was successful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your experience. One of only 6 or 7 black students, at Biloxi.
Yeah, there were the enrollment there then was about 1,500, and there were 6 of us,
Okay.
and they put all of us in different home rooms. So you pretty much went throughout your day, not in a comfortable position, because you were the only one, and they had anxieties about talking to you. The other students did, and so you pretty much went comfortable through the day, but we did it,
did it, made it through it.
we did.
Were you involved in any activities that summer?
Actually, I really didn't. I was inducted into the National Honor Society.
Good for
I
you.
was because of my average from Nichols High, and then because of how I maintained when I was at Biloxi High, I was inducted into the Honor Society, and I graduated with honors.
You graduated?
Yes. Well, what about your early education? You
Early
start out in Catholic school?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Seems that back in those days there was a prerequisite about my father not being a Catholic and the mother being a Catholic, that they agreed that the children would all be Catholic and educated Catholic. So I started out at St. Peter's Catholic School there.
Okay.
And I went through elementary school at St. Peter's until graduated in the 8th grade. And so we went that first year to the public high school, Carver High School. Beautiful, brand new brick building. Never forget that.
What part of town is
It was in the northern part of Pascagoula, toward the beach, going toward the beach. Beachfront. It was on, I can't think of the name of the street now.
That's okay.
But the school was exciting. When we went there, it was something different. But right away, it's a big difference. There's less discipline, less orderliness. And we were in the 9th grade not feeling that we were getting any more advanced education.
After the 1 year in public school,
Well,
you decided.
here's what happened. So
Yeah,
we spent
yeah.
the 1 year, and then now we going back. So we went back and enrolled, and I think what really struck us more than anything was that when we got to these 10th grade classes, we started having the science and the biology classes.
Yeah.
So we're in this room, and it's a new school, and it had this beautiful desk with the running water troughs and the Bunsen, the
Yeah,
jets,
you were in the laboratory.
the jets in the laboratory
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But there was no microscopes, no test tubes,
Oh my God.
no Bunsen burners. There was nothing there.
Yeah, yeah.
So we say, well, how are we going to learn? And
You can't experiment without the
So
tools.
the teacher would have the experiment at her desk,
Okay.
and they just show us
The
and
results,
so-
and you weren't
and
mixing the chemicals
so
or whatever. Sure.
something. We were like 14 and 15 years old, but we could see something wrong with this picture. So then we started going to our classes, and there was disorderliness in all the classes. there was no discipline with the kids. They could come in anytime and leave and talk. And so we said to each other, this ain't working here. So one day, I don't know what caused it, but we agreed, my brother and I, out of frustration that, look, we're not going to learn anything here, so it's a waste of our time.
Sure.
Well, we're just going to quit school without our parents' permission. We just went to the principal's office and returned in our books, and we left school. So then we went home and we broke the news to the parents, especially to our father, and we told him that we weren't going to learn anything there, so it's a waste of time, so why should we stay there? And so we said, well, what y'all going to do, because y'all need to get your education? He said, well, we want to go down to our Mother of Sorrows. He said, well, we don't have the money for the tuition. We said, well, we'll work and we'll pay our
How
way.
did you know that there was a school, Mother of Sorrow existed? Yeah.
Because we knew the other kids that left the 8th grade that went.
Okay.
See, they had the church at St. Peter's somehow was able to acquire a bus, a yellow school bus.
Yeah.
Was owned by the church, St. Peter. And here's where I come in.
Okay.
That year,
Uh-huh.
when I think I was
We
turning,
must be talking about what, 1954, 55?
yes.
Okay.
So I came in, this guy, Peter Fisher was his name. He was like 15 or 16 at that time. And I would think I was like turning 15 at that time. And so he started driving the school bus. And then they didn't have to make 2 trips. Just drive it, park it all day, drive it back in the evening.
Sure.
So he was one of my better friends because we grew up, all of us went to the St. Peter's and we were confirmed together, Holy Communion together, and we were really close friends. So we finally found our way on that bus. So now we got a student who's driving this bus. There are no adults.
Now, he didn't have a driver's license, did
Yes, he did.
He did?
That's what I'm saying. When he turned 16,
Okay.
then he started driving this bus.
Okay.
16, I think they allowed him to have a driver.
Okay.
So I didn't play sports
No,
because,
well, I
as
know
I
I
say,
meant went to school.
I worked and sent myself. This is how I paid
Your tuition?
for my tuition. When I would get off the bus in the evening, I would get off and I wouldn't go home. I'd go straight to a drugstore called a Village Drugstore, which is there in Pascagoula. Was owned by a guy who became my mentor. His name was Maceo Dennis. He had come back from the Navy, and he went to Xavier University and got his pharmacy degree. Then he came back and he worked for the man who owned that drugstore and ended up buying it from him.
No kidding.
So that was a
Wow.
what they called back then a colored drugstore.
Yeah, yeah.
Owned by a colored person.
Pretty unusual.
Unusual. Very unusual at
Yeah.
that time. My mentor saw to it that I got scholarships, and he sent me down to Xavier University.
Oh, sure.
And I enrolled in pharmacy school. The little money I had was gone within that first year. So the second year, I didn't have any money. So I couldn't get back into school. So I literally just dropped out of school.
Okay.
So I went back home. So this mentor would not let that be. He said to me, well, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I just get a job at the shipyard or the paper mill and help my family.
Sure.
And he said, well, how can you help them with no education? So then I said to him, well, I don't have the money to do this. He said, so I said, you know, I heard about a school down in Texas named Texas Southern University, and I understand that the tuition is a whole lot less, and they got a pharmacy school, and it's a whole lot less than Xavier. So while I'm sitting in here for a few minutes to write this letter to the registrar, he comes back in to me and he says, I tell you what, it's late, and he would always put the finger on me. I tell you what you do. You take my car and this credit card, and you go down there, because it's June. You ain't got enough time to play around.
Yeah.
Just go down, get your transcript, and you go down there. So
Wow.
he gave me his car and his credit card.
Man, that's what a
Okay?
yeah.
And I drove.
That's huge.
I drove from Pascagoula
Yeah.
down to Texas, went into the registrar's office, told him who I was, gave him all the information I had. Bang, I got the information back within a few weeks.
Wow.
And as I say, the rest now is history. So in the process of doing that, I became of age and I got drafted
Oh God.
because
I
I
hope you
wasn't
didn't
in
go
school.
to Vietnam.
No, thank
Okay.
God. Thank God. So I got drafted.
It was too early for that.
Right, got drafted, went into the Army, and they ended up sending me to Germany for that period of time. I spent the 2 years.
Good experience though.
I had yes, it was good.
Yeah. Blessed man.
Absolutely. And I realize that more and more every day. God has blessed me,
He has.
truly.
Well,
And I
I'm
keep
sure-
saying that I have to credit it for having the discernment to go to OMS. And I'm really thankful that I made that decision. I don't know, had to come from God. I was just a child
Yeah. Well,
to make a decision like
it's
that.
it's amazing how we're guided by this
Spirit.
unknown force,
Right,
and it's almost like you were chosen.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Over in the Doris C. Bush City Park, the graduates gathered for some fun and food. I asked some, what was it like going to school before and during desegregation?
Now, Gene, you have a very unusual case here. I've spoken to many people who graduated from a single school, but you went to all of these schools that's represented here today.
I did.
Tell me about that.
Okay, at that time you did not need to be 5 years old to start school. So I was in pre-primer or primer in Biloxi Colored High School. It was located on Nixon Street. I think I went there for 2 years. After that point, I went to A.E. Perkins. And I stayed there until they changed it over to Marshall Franklin Nichols High until the 8th grade. I then went to Our Mother of Sorrows, which is commonly called OMS, from the 9th through the 12th, and this is where I graduated from, OMS.
Well, how about your other schools besides you went to? Name all of them that you went to.
Well, I was,
That's Our Mother of Sorrows.
that's Our Mother of Sorrows, yeah. After that point, I went in service, Women's Army Corps. Okay?
Women's Army Corps?
Women's Army Corps. I went in service because my parents couldn't afford to send me to college. And the fellows were going to the military. And this was my way to do that. I always credit the White House Hotel for sending me into the military because I was up there on the 3rd floor and they were cleaning the rooms after Labor Day. And I saw the school bus pass by. I left there walking and went to the post office and enlisted in the Army. At that time it was Women's Army Corps. I enlisted for 2 years. And this is how I went to my college. But I didn't do it until after I got back home, got married, and had 5 babies in 8 years' time.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Jeff Davis Junior College. I only got an associate's. I got it in business and accounting.
I remember I had some wonderful teachers, Mrs. Bailey. She was a wonderful teacher I liked a lot. And our principal, I remember Mr. Duckworth. I remember Miss Rodman. I think she was the councilwoman there. And so they were all very good teachers there. It was an all-black school, and then in 1970 it was integrated. So.
Now, in the 70s, did white children come to Nichols? Did they go to school there?
I think, yeah, it was a mix.
Because I know on the other side they sent black children to the white school.
Yeah, they
Right.
So
they did.
So they mixed.
They mixed it.
At Nichols.
Yes, they did. So they ended that.
And I know that was a stressful time for folks, but what was it like with the white children coming to Nichols?
Well, at that point, I had a baby, and I was more into, raising my child. I got married, so I was I was out of the school, so I didn't
Okay, so you
really,
were finished.
keep up with what was going on there. And then eventually I left Biloxi in 1972 and to go and start a new life somewhere else. I had two girls, so.
And you're back here with your friends?
And I'm back here. I come not every 2 years, but I try to. And this is our 50th high school reunion celebration. Being here is very important, and it's something that everyone should participate in and enjoy.
So we had everything very convenient. It was a wonderful time. It was during segregation, and it was all Afro-American school at that time, and Biloxi High and Michelle and some of the other schools all Caucasian. But we knew it was going to come a time that this would end, and integration came through in 1967. It began, I believe. And before then, I want to say this, that we had wonderful parents. Most of us that grew up together, close-knit, our fathers and mothers was right there for us. When we had to go to proms and stuff, our parents went to proms with us. My mother did, I know. My father, Lucian Brown, my mother, Geraldine Brown, good known people, worked at the Buena Vista Hotel for many years, which was one of the biggest hotels, busiest business that we had at that time, Buena Vista Hotel. 1967, I moved on up in high school, and I was a junior, played football, basketball, ran track. 67, we was Gulf Coast champions in basketball and football. And that was a very, very well known time during that time, that we was known to have a fantastic football and basketball team. Matter of fact, we had one of our players that graduated with us. He's not here right now, but he was drafted by the Chicago Bears. His name was Lionel Antoine, and he's in the Hall of Fame down here. And he was in the class of 68 with us. And we played ball and basketball. We was champions together.
All right, this is Gordon Jackson Jr. We're here at the Biloxi and Nichols High School reunion, 50th anniversary. I'm here. We're here at the picnic, and I'm speaking with Miss Peggy A. Gibson. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Staying cool. We know all of us is trying to stay cool out here on the outside.
True.
Yeah. And are you enjoying the festivities so far?
Of course. Yeah. It's great to be home.
You probably come every year.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Every 2 years. Every time the reunion is held.
That's true.
All right. Good deal. How do you get the most out of the reunion? What do you enjoy the most?
The fellowship with my friends and the other classmates. It's such a, we lost all of that when we went and integrated and went to Biloxi High. We lost that camaraderie. And so just seeing them last night and the spirit we have and the family-like atmosphere that we share with each other, you can't replace that. And our children will never experience that. So it's a wonderful feeling.
Do you think there's a chance that we can reinfuse that into our younger generations some way, somehow, or is it just irreplaceable?
It's irreplaceable because we were a village that raised all of our kids together, including the teachers. So our friends were also teachers and the other leaders in the community. So we all worked together to help raise the children. And so we were all parented by other people, like her mama, Miss Beck, and all the other people, Miss Gines. They all parented us. Yeah. So we don't have that kind of environment anymore.
Yeah, there's that joke, or not a joke, but there's that line that if you did something wrong, your neighbor whipped you, and then when you told your mother, when you come home, your mother whipped you, and when your father came home from work, told him, and he whipped you. I mean, it's kind of like that.
That's correct. That does not exist anymore. You cannot say anything to somebody else's child now.
Yeah, right. That's something else. Something else. Just give me an order. Well, first of all, you were born in Biloxi?
I was born in Ocean Springs.
Ocean Springs, great, okay. And give me the progression of schools that you went to.
Okay, so I transferred here to MF A.E. Perkins. I was in the 10th grade, and I did, even when I was in Ocean Springs, I started at Our Mothers of Sorrows. So I went there for 2 years, and then when my parents divorced, then I went to Keys Elementary School, then transferred back here in the 10th grade. When I was 10 years old to the 5th grade. So I went to A.E. Perkins, then I went to M.F. Nichols Junior High, then I transferred to Biloxi High with the freedom of choice. And so I actually finished from Biloxi High in 1970.
1970. So you made the choice of going to Biloxi, where you still had an option to stay at Nichols.
Correct.
What was the factor behind making that decision?
Well, it was simple. I was interested in mathematics, and I had taken Algebra 2, and that was the highest they had at Nichols that they offered. So in order to get Algebra 3, 4, Trig, and Geometry, I had to go to Biloxi High. So I majored in mathematics at Xavier University. So for my career, it was a career move.
My father was in the Air Force, and I was born in Biloxi at Keesler Air Force Base. And then after that, we traveled a lot. And before we were stationed in Newfoundland, I came to Biloxi. I had went to 15 different schools before that. So I went, when I met the class of 68, I met him at 6th grade. And then we left, and then I didn't see him anymore. And then my father got ready to retire in Michigan, K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base. And I got to go back here to Biloxi, and then I got to graduate with the class of 68. Since then, I traveled a lot, and then I decided to settle in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was a very educational thing. I got the bachelor's degree, I got the master's degree in Scouting of Science. I loved it. I started as a scoutmaster, I moved my way up, and when I decided to stop, I was an assistant district commissioner. I worked on the council. I loved it doing that because it was very adventurous. We did tremendously, the Boy Scout had a lot to offer. The reason why women got into the positions because at that time, divorces started to happen a lot. There was a lot of men and women was divorcing and being separated from the fathers and the mothers. So most of the mothers was raising the sons, and they went into Boy Scouts. So therefore, they took more women, start moving into these positions, and it just was a wonderful experience.
To me, it was a wonderful experience. I got to play Negro League baseball. I lived in the project in Bayou Augusta around a lot of friends. We grew up with a strict neighborhood. Everybody was family. Everybody looked out for each one. I really enjoyed it. It was the best days of my life.
Now, you said you played Negro League baseball.
Played Negro League baseball
and
with the Biloxi Dodgers.
The Dodgers. Now, you must have been part of the program that was done at the Oil Museum this past couple
Yes, I am. I went to Oil Museum with Mr. Winham.
What was it like playing with the Dodgers?
I loved it. It got me away from home on Sundays. It was a wonderful experience. Got to meet a lot of people. Got to travel for free. I had 4 sisters, and getting away from home was one of the highlights of my weekend, getting away from my sisters.
Now, besides playing with the Dodgers and graduating from Nichols, where did you go from there?
I went to the U.S. Navy. I went and joined the Navy in Orlando, Florida. I spent 4 years in the Navy, went to Italy, Spain, France, Greece, where we made all of Europe, and come back. I was on a guided missile destroyer in Norfolk, Virginia, and spent 4 years in the Navy, and come back home and spent 35 years in the shipyard.
Wow, so you've had a long, productive life?
Yes, and I have spent 40 years of my life umpiring softball, baseball, and doing sports.
Right here in Biloxi? Or
right now, I am currently the UIC, State of Mississippi, Gulf Coast District, 40 years.
So this is your 50th reunion here?
This is my 50th year.
50th.
Reunion. We've been graduated out of school 50 years.
This is quite a gathering.
This is a
like
wonderful
a lot of
gathering.
people come and a lot of repeats.
A lot of them. We have more than ever, and it is a wonderful experience.
And what's your fondest memory or made you proud growing up here and attending Nichols?
My proudest moments is, I tell you, just being alive, being blessed, and getting to see my classmates after 50 years. That is my joy right now, seeing my classmates, getting to speak to them, and remembering the ones that's not here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right in there.
My name is Terry Henderson.
Where'd you go to school at?
Went to school at M.F. Nichols.
Nichols, right here in Biloxi.
That's correct.
Now you're sitting around here enjoying your 50th reunion.
Yes.
All right. Well, tell me something about what it was like growing up in Biloxi and going to school at Nichols.
It was wonderful. We were the only school that I know of that we could walk to school. The address never changed from elementary school all the way through high school. We went from A.E. Perkins Elementary to Nichols Junior and Senior High School. All at 950 Belmont Street at that time, which is now Nichols Drive. And we were able to walk to school. I was a member of the band and the choir. And I graduated in '68. That's why we're doing our 50th. Went off to college for a little while. Then I went into the military. And I retired out of the United States Navy.
You did?
Yes.
And what did you do after you retired?
I went back to school. Got my degree at Mississippi Valley State University.
And what did you do with it?
Taught school for a minute, but most of my teaching was in the military. I did majority of my stuff was in the military. And I came back here to stay, cause I like home. And so now I'm just retired and just enjoying.
There's a great group of people here today.
Yes,
it looks like they're all having a good time with it.
Definitely. I haven't seen some of these folks since high school.
Well, what was Biloxi like for you back then?
Well, I tell you, until I went off to college, I didn't know how good we had it here in this area, because it is as much difference in North Mississippi and South Mississippi. It's just like going to a different state. I never seen cotton before until I got up the valley. And and for some reason, they just thought we were uppity people down here. We just thought I guess because of the military, you know, everybody had to be kind of like, you couldn't kind of separate us.
Is that right?
Right, because of the military. And we had a lot of military folks in our school with us, you know, students, their parents was in the military. So
what's your fondest memory of Biloxi?
Being in the band and the choir. Yes.
That Nichols Marching Band, right?
Nichols Marching Band and Concert Band.
They were quite a treat during Mardi Gras. Everybody always looked forward to see them marching, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we were the top of the line.
I do remember it myself.
Yes, indeed.
Well, one last thing. What made you proud to be from Biloxi and growing up?
I would just say Biloxi was like another New Orleans. We would go on Main Street, it was popping 24/7. And I was out there even when I wasn't even supposed to be out there, you know, but once I got of age, it just went. It was just another, like I said, New Orleans. It was all the clubs, the businesses, and everything in Biloxi was really nice. And that's the main thing I miss now. With the casinos coming in and kind of just took all that away, but that's what I really miss about this town, is the hustle and bustle that we used to do when I was growing up. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here today. Tell me something about going to school in Biloxi and graduating from Nichols High School.
Well, I started off at Nichols High School when I was 7 years old, and Perkins Elementary, and went from Perkins Elementary through my whole school years all the way to Nichols High School. Played sports my full time that I was at Nichols High School, all sports, baseball, basketball, and track, and played when I was at school with the city leagues and all of the sports, dealing with Pee Wee baseball and swimming at the swimming pool, all the sports.
Now in high school you said that you actually started playing for the Dodgers.
Yeah, when I was in high school, in my sophomore year, I started playing with Biloxi Dodgers over at the old stadium, by the football stadium, back in the day.
Lee Street?
Back in 1963, 64. And through my whole years of school, it was all dealing with sports and education. And so from all of the sports that I dealt with in high school was anything that could be played.
Now, after you graduated, well, first, what was it like being at Nichols School besides your sports, your teachers and your classmates? What was life like with them?
Well, my last year is in high school. I only went to high school a half a day, and this was 1965. I started to work. Miss Rodman, which was my counselor, got me a job, and I started working at the Biloxi Post Office as a partial post clerk in the afternoons. I was going to school a half a day, and then I was working at the post office the other half day from 65 to 1966 when I graduated from high school.
And what did you do after you graduated?
And I graduated from high school. I was picking up selective service in the afternoon at the post office, and that's when I found out I was getting ready to get drafted in the military, in the U.S. Army. So the selective service person came down one afternoon, and she told me that Thomas, your number is coming up. And I was getting ready to get drafted into the military. So meanwhile, because the person that I was, they had a test set up for me up in the next day with the U.S. Army. And so I went up at 10:30 the next morning, which was on a Wednesday, and took my engineering test. And then I went in the Army as a combat construction engineer. And then I waited until August the 15th of 1966, and that was the day I left Biloxi, Mississippi, and went into the United States Army.
Now, after that military career, where did you head?
After the military career, when I went to work for JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for NASA, while I was building those facilities, and then I went to work for Mantech Field Engineering. And during that time in Mantech Field Engineering, I was there for facilities manager, handling all the facilities that was built on Fort Hood by me.
You seem to have had a very successful career in the military. And would you say that Nichols High School contributed to that?
Yeah, Nichols High School and the people in the area that was behind me. I worked for Mrs. Goday when I was building, growing up, and actually cleaning the offices in the morning, cleaning actually the beer garden that she had back then. And just dealing with the people in Biloxi that dealt with me and my family made me successful in my life.
So you were originally from Biloxi?
And I was originally from Newton, Mississippi. I was born in Newton, Mississippi. Yeah. And then we moved to Biloxi when I was 5.
And that's where Mr. Wyndham was from, the Dodgers coach, right?
Yeah. So, and then my career, doing sports and stuff with the Biloxi Dodgers back then, carried me on to meet people, playing baseball down in Pensacola, Florida with the Atlanta Braves farm team back in there, 64 and 65.
I see that your reunion says a renewed attitude, team, and dream.
Yeah.
What's it like being back with your folks?
Well, it's always been wonderful with the people that grew up and knew me by what I actually did, as far as sports and what I did in school, and Miss Rodman, which was one of the people in my life that really helped me out as far as starting my career.
Now, when you played with the Dodgers, what was your position?
I was left field, center field, and I was a pretty good hitter, and I was fast as far as base running. Yeah, but I was a fielder, left field.
A good combination.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
One year after Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's powerful I Have a Dream speech, Biloxi schools desegregated. Nichols School lives on in the same location. The old school gone, but not forgotten. Replaced by a new elementary school where both black and white children learn together. A Mother of Sorrows Catholic school still stands on Division Street, and although the classrooms are silent, they serve as a reminder that, in the words of George Washington Carver, Education is the key that unlocks the golden door to freedom.